You can always spot them in a room, not because they're loud, not because they're flashy, not because they're wearing logos or dropping names. Actually, it's the opposite. The truly upper class move differently, they speak differently. They carry themselves with a quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. And here's what's fascinating. These behaviors aren't about money. You can have money and still scream "new rich" from a mile away. But upper class, that's something else entirely. It's a code, a silent language, and most people will never crack it because they're too busy trying to look rich instead of actually being upper class. Well, that changes today because I'm about to decode the 12 subtle behaviors that separate the upper class from everyone else. No gatekeeping, no vague advice, just the exact signals that quietly scream, "I belong at the top." Now, before you roll your eyes and think this is about snobbery or elitism, hear me out. This isn't about putting people down. It's about understanding the psychology, the patterns, and the behaviors that create respect, influence, and access in high-level circles. Whether you're climbing the ladder or just curious about how the other half operates, these insights are gold. So without wasting another second, let's break down these 12 behaviors that money can't buy but class always reveals. Number 1, they never talk about money. First rule of upper-class behavior. Money is never the topic of conversation. Ever. You'll never hear someone truly upper-class ask, "How much did that cost?" or brag, "I just closed a huge deal." That's new money behavior. That's insecurity disguised as success. The upper class operates on a simple principle. Discussing money is beneath them, not because they're pretentious, but because money is assumed. It's like asking someone if they brushed their teeth. Of course they did. Why would you bring it up? Think about it. When was the last time you heard a Vanderbilt or a Rockefeller descendant flex about their net worth on Instagram? Never. Because they don't need to. Their name, their network, their access speaks for itself. I once attended a dinner party in Greenwich, Connecticut. Old money, real wealth. Not a single person mentioned their job, their income, or their portfolio. Instead, they discussed art, philanthropy, travel, ideas. The waiter probably made more references to money than the guests did. That's the signal. The moment someone feels the need to talk about their money, they're revealing they're not comfortable having it. And that discomfort is the first crack in the facade. Which brings us to behavior number 2. Number 2. They're masters of understatement. Upper-class people have perfected the art of downplaying everything. Their accomplishments, their possessions, their pedigree, it's all delivered with a casual, almost dismissive tone. "Oh, this old thing?" About a vintage Rolex that costs more than a car. "Just a little place we have, about a 7,000 square foot estate." "I dabble in business," when they're sitting on a board of directors for a Fortune 500 company. This isn't false modesty, it's strategic restraint. Because in upper-class circles, trying too hard is the kiss of death. Effort should be invisible, success should look effortless. The term for this? Sprezzatura. It's an Italian concept that means studied carelessness. The ability to make difficult things look easy. To have immense wealth and power but wear it so lightly that people barely notice. New money screams, old money whispers. And the whisper is always more powerful because it makes people lean in. It creates intrigue without desperation. Mystery without performance. I knew someone who went to Harvard, started 2 successful companies, and spoke 4 languages. You'd never know unless you spent months around them. They introduced themselves by their first name. Never dropped credentials, never name-dropped connections. That restraint, that's pure upper-class signaling. And it leads directly into behavior number 3. Number 3, their manners are flawless but never performative. Here's where most people get tripped up. They think upper class means stuffy etiquette and rigid formality. Wrong. Upper class manners are smooth, natural, and almost invisible. They say please and thank you to everyone, the waiter, the valet, the housekeeper. Not because they're trying to prove something, but because respect is default setting. They hold doors, write thank you notes, remember names, and make eye contact. But it never feels forced. It's not a show. It's just how they move through the world. Watch someone upper class in a restaurant. They're polite to the staff, but they're not overly friendly or chatty. There's a respectful distance. They don't treat service workers like buddies or like servants. They treat them like professionals doing a job. That's the balance. And here's the key. Their manners extend to everyone, not just people they want to impress. That consistency is the tell. Because anyone can be polite to a CEO. But only the truly upper class are equally respectful to the person cleaning the bathroom. It's called grace under pressure. And it's one of the most underrated signals of class. Speaking of which, let's talk about behavior number 4 because this one surprises most people. Number 4, they dress like they have nothing to prove. Forget the flashy logos. Forget the head-to-toe designer fits. Upper-class style is quiet, timeless, and almost boring to the untrained eye. They wear brands you've never heard of, custom tailors, heritage labels. Pieces that last decades, not seasons. And the funny thing, most of their wardrobe looks simple. A navy blazer, a white button-down, well-fitted trousers, leather shoes that have been resoled 3 times, no logos, no loud patterns, no look-at-me energy. Everything fits perfectly because it's tailored, not because it's trendy. I once saw a billionaire at a charity event wearing a plain gray sweater, khakis, and loafers. No watch, no jewelry, nothing flashy. Meanwhile, the new money guys in the room were dripping in Gucci belts and Rolex Daytonas, practically screaming for validation. Guess who got more respect? The guy in the plain sweater. Because upper-class people know that quality speaks quietly. Luxury doesn't need a logo when the fabric, the cut, and the fit do the talking. And this extends beyond clothes. Their homes, understated elegance. Their cars, often practical, even boring. A Volvo, a Land Rover, something reliable, safe, classic. Not a Lamborghini with a custom wrap. Because here's the thing, the upper class don't dress for strangers. They dress for themselves and their peers can spot quality without a label. Which brings us to behavior number 5. Number 5, they're obsessed with education and intellectual curiosity. This is a big one. Upper-class families don't just value education, they worship it, but not in the way you think. It's not about test scores or Ivy League acceptance letters. It's about cultivating a genuine love for learning. They read constantly. They travel for cultural enrichment. They speak multiple languages not for business, but for depth. Dinner conversations revolve around books, history, art, philosophy, current events. Not gossip, not reality TV, not surface-level small talk. They genuinely care about ideas, and this starts young. Upper-class kids grow up surrounded by books, museums, theater, classical music. Not as obligation, but as lifestyle. Education isn't a checkbox. It's identity. I once had a conversation with someone whose family had been wealthy for 4 generations. We talked for an hour about Roman history, the rise and fall of empires, and parallels to modern geopolitics. Never once did they mention their portfolio, their properties, or their pedigree. The intellectual stimulation was the flex. That's upper-class behavior. Knowledge as status symbol, curiosity as currency, and the willingness to admit when they don't know something because learning is more valuable than appearing smart. And before we continue, I want to pause for a second. Most people watch videos like this, get inspired, then forget everything by tomorrow. Don't let that be you. We've created an entire series on wealth psychology, social capital, and how the upper class really operates. Go binge our recent videos, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you're getting the full picture. All right, let's keep going. Number 6, they have impeccable punctuality and respect for time. Upper-class people are never late, ever. Not because they're rigid or uptight, but because they understand that time is the ultimate luxury. And wasting someone else's time is the ultimate disrespect. If they say 7 p.m., they mean 7 p.m., not 7:15, not on my way at 7:10. They're there at 6:55 waiting. And if something comes up, they communicate early and apologize genuinely. This extends to everything. Meetings, dinners, phone calls. They respect schedules because they expect the same in return. Time is treated like the finite, precious resource it is. Compare this to the chronically late person who treats every invitation like a suggestion. That signals disorganization, disrespect, or worse, an inflated sense of importance. None of those are upper-class traits. I once knew a CEO worth hundreds of millions who would apologize profusely if he was even 5 minutes late to a casual coffee meeting. That level of respect for other people's time? That's class. That's power wrapped in humility. And it's not just about being on time, it's about being present. No phone checking, no distracted half-listening. When upper-class people commit their time, they commit fully, which leads perfectly into behavior number 7. Number 7, they network without networking. Upper-class people don't network. They build relationships. Big difference. They're not working the room with business cards and elevator pitches. They're having genuine conversations, finding common interests, and making real connections. The transactional energy is completely absent. Why? Because their network is already deep. They don't need to hustle for contacts. They were introduced properly, through trusted mutual connections over decades. And here's the key: they give before they take. They make introductions, they offer help. They share opportunities without expecting immediate return, because they play the long game. I watched someone introduce two people at a dinner party who ended up partnering on a multi-million-dollar deal. The person who made the introduction never asked for a thing, didn't need to. That favor banked social capital that will pay dividends for years. That's upper-class networking, subtle, strategic, generous, and completely void of desperation. Which brings us to behavior number 8, and this one is subtle but powerful. Number 8, they're incredibly discreet. If you're truly upper class, your business is nobody's business. No social media oversharing, no public airing of problems, no loud drama or attention-seeking behavior. Privacy is sacred. They don't post their vacations in real time. They don't broadcast their purchases. They don't share family issues or personal struggles publicly. Everything is handled quietly, privately, behind closed doors. Why? Because upper-class culture values discretion as a form of power. What people don't know, they can't use against you. Mystery creates respect. Oversharing creates vulnerability. I know families worth hundreds of millions that have zero social media presence. Their kids go to elite schools, but you'd never know it from Google. They donate millions to charity, but anonymously. They own properties around the world, but none of it is public record. That level of privacy isn't paranoia, it's strategy. Because the truly powerful don't need public validation. They have private satisfaction. And that leads us into behavior number 9. Number 9, they invest in experiences, not just things. Upper-class people collect memories, not just possessions. Sure, they have nice things. But that's not where their focus is. They'd rather spend money on a month-long cultural immersion in Japan than a flashy car. They'd rather invest in their children's education and experiences than a bigger house to impress neighbors they don't care about. Travel is educational, not just recreational. Dinners are about connection, not just food. Hobbies are pursued with depth, not as Instagram content. I knew a family that spent every summer traveling to a different country with their kids. Not luxury resorts, cultural experiences. Learning the language, exploring history, eating local food, building perspective. That's upper-class thinking, because things depreciate, experiences appreciate, memories compound. And the perspective gained from deep, meaningful experiences creates depth that no amount of material wealth can buy. And that depth shows up in behavior number 10. Number 10, they're comfortable with silence. This is one of the most underrated signals of confidence and class. Upper-class people don't feel the need to fill every silence with noise. They can sit in a room, say nothing, and feel completely at ease. No nervous chatter, no forced small talk, no performative energy, just calm, comfortable presence. Why? Because they're secure. They don't need to prove anything. They don't need constant validation or attention. They're comfortable in their own skin and in their own mind. Compare this to someone who talks incessantly, jokes nervously, or dominates conversations. That's insecurity. That's anxiety masked as extroversion. Upper-class people ask questions. They listen more than they speak. They let conversations breathe. And when they do speak, it's measured, thoughtful, and purposeful. I once sat through an entire dinner where a prominent investor spoke maybe 10 sentences the whole night. But every sentence was gold. Everyone leaned in. That's the power of restraint. That's behavior number 10 in action, and it connects directly to number 11. Number 11, they have multi-generational thinking. Here's a big one. Upper-class people don't just think about themselves. They think about legacy, about family lines, about what they're building for the next generation and beyond. Decisions are made with a 50-year, even 100-year horizon. They plant trees they'll never sit under. They build institutions that will outlast them. They invest in trust funds, education funds, family offices. This isn't selfishness. It's stewardship. They see themselves as temporary caretakers of wealth and status that must be preserved and passed down properly. I knew a family that had a rule. No major financial decisions were made without considering the impact on the next 2 generations. That's not greed. That's responsibility. And this long-term thinking shows up in everything. How they raise their kids, how they manage money, how they build relationships. It's never about short-term wins. It's about sustainable generational success. Which brings us to the final behavior, and this one ties everything together. Number 12. They lead with quiet confidence, never arrogance. The ultimate signal of upper class. Confidence without ego. They don't need to dominate. They don't need to be the loudest or the flashiest. They simply occupy space with calm assurance. They know who they are, they know their value. And they don't need external validation to confirm it. That inner security radiates outward. People feel it, respect it, gravitate toward it. Arrogance says, I'm better than you. Confidence says, I know who I am. The difference is massive. And the upper class have mastered that difference. They're kind without being weak, strong without being aggressive, successful without being boastful. That balance is the ultimate sign of true class. Bottom line, these 12 behaviors aren't about money. They're about mindset, discipline, and generational conditioning. You can have all the money in the world and still lack class. Or you can have modest means and carry yourself with the quiet dignity of the upper echelon. So here's my challenge to you. Pick 3 of these behaviors and start practicing them this week. Not to fake it, but to genuinely embody the principles that create respect, influence, and lasting success. If this resonated with you, type class in the comments. And when you're ready to dive deeper into the psychology of wealth and status, click this next video. We're breaking down the exact mindset shifts that separate the rich from the truly powerful. Don't miss it.